Everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, you'll learn about one of the most important concepts in the field of biochemistry, that is metabolism. So we shall directly enter into the topic, but in this video, I'll give the discussion regarding the basic stuff which is compulsorily required in order to understand the core concepts of the metabolism. So now, in order to live, we are supposed to consume the food. The foodstuff we consume is consisting of complex nutrient molecules such as carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So these are the complex or larger nutrient molecules that are present in the foodstuff. So when you consume the food material, these complex nutrient molecule will undergo splitting, will break down to give the simpler molecule during the process of digestion. In the digestion process, the complex nutrient molecule that are present in the foodstuff will split up or will break down to give the simpler molecule. So, say carbohydrate splits up to give monosaccharides, and protein molecules break down to give amino acids, and lipids will break down to give the fatty acid and glycerol. So these are the simpler molecules that are going to produce during the digestion of this complex nutrient molecule. And during the breakdown of this complex nutrient molecule into the simpler molecules, there occurs releasing of more amount of energy, and that releasing of energy will be in the form of ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. And whatever the energy which is released in the form of ATP during the breakdown of this complex nutrient molecule will be utilized for carrying out of the cellular activities. And once these complex nutrient molecules break down to give these simpler units, and these simpler units are finally going to form a common precursor material, and by using that precursor material in the body, the smaller units, the simpler units which are produced from the complex nutrient molecule will once again convert into the nutrient molecules, but not of the same carbohydrate which is which produced the monosaccharide, not the same protein from which the amino acids are produced, some other proteins, some other lipids, some different carbohydrate molecule will be produced. That means within the body, once the food is consumed, the complex nutrient molecules that are present in the food what we consume, we are going to get the simpler units, and these simpler units will convert back into carbohydrates, proteins and lipids, or to some other materials, but not of the same carbohydrate, same protein and same lipid. There will be different carbohydrate, different protein and different lipid materials will be produced. It's a continuous process. That is, the complex nutrient molecules will give the simpler units, and in the body the simpler units will once again convert back into complex nutrient molecules, and all these conversions will be catalyzed by specific enzymes that are present in our body. And in this way, whatever the enzymatic reactions that occurs, that is the biochemical reaction that occurs in a cell of a human body or a cell of a system, a living system, will constitute the whole and soul setup of metabolism. That means, if you want to give a simplest definition for metabolism, metabolism is the sum of all biochemical reactions. That means the reactions that occurs in a cell. Sum of all biochemical reactions that occurs in a cell. that occurs in a cell is collectively called as metabolism. And should remember, all the reactions that occurs in a cell will actually catalyzed by a specific enzyme. And one more thing you should remember, whatever the enzymatic or catalytic reactions, that is strictly speaking biochemical reaction that occurs in a cell, will occur in a very rapid way under very mild conditions only. That is at a pH that is equals to 7 and at a temperature that will be equals to 37 degrees Celsius. These are the mild conditions. We know that is our normal body temperature and that is our neutral pH, and under these conditions the biochemical reactions will occur very rapidly. And as I said, each and every biochemical reaction will be catalyzed by a specific enzyme. And in the metabolic pathway, that is in the whole and soul metabolism, the conversion of complex nutrient to simpler units and simpler units into complex nutrient molecules once again. So whatever the accumulation of all these things will occur, that is what we call as metabolic pathway. And in each step of metabolic pathway, a specific chemical change will be observed. In each metabolic pathway, a specific chemical change will be observed. And if you observe the sequence of steps, that is present in a metabolic pathway, in each and every step, in a sequence of steps, that means if you focus on the steps through which the nutrient is converting into simpler and simpler unit is converting into nutrient molecule, a precursor material will be converted into product, and between the precursor and the product material you will be observing several intermediates. We used to call them as metabolic intermediates, or the metabolic intermediates which are going to produce in the pathway of the metabolism. That each and every metabolic intermediates will be simply pronounced as metabolite. So each and every metabolic intermediate that is produced in a metabolic pathway will be called as metabolite. And this is some introduction that is required for metabolism. And now we shall directly enter into the main concept, that is types of metabolism. Because we said already, in one case complex nutrient molecule is converting into simpler units, and in other case the simpler units is converting into complex nutrient molecule. So depending upon this thing we are classifying the metabolism, and depending on the type of conversion is happening, metabolism is broadly classified into two categories. The first category is called catabolism, or whatever the reactions that occur in this stage is called as catabolic reactions. And the second stage or second type of metabolism is called anabolism. First type of the metabolism is catabolism, and the second type is anabolism or anabolic reactions. So these are the two types of metabolism that we can notice in the metabolic pathway. So now we shall consider the first type of metabolism, that is catabolism or catabolic reactions. So here, if you consider the larger or complex nutrient molecules that are produced from the that are present in the food material that what we have consumed, and if those complex nutrient molecules are degrading so as to give the simple or smaller products, such kind of degradative path of the metabolism is simply called as catabolism. That is the degradative pathway of metabolism is simply called as catabolism. So what will happen in case of catabolism? That is the larger, or you can call it as a complex. The larger or complex nutrient molecule will be degraded to give the simple or smaller components. This is the simplest way of describing the thing, that is catabolism. And during the catabolism, the more amount of energy will be released in the form of ATP. That means catabolism is a very best example for the reactions consisting of, majority of the reactions that occurs in case of catabolism are exergonic reactions. That means more amount of energy will be released in the system. So this is the thing about catabolism. And in case of catabolic reaction, as I said, energy will be released, but we know that whatever the amount of energy will release in a step, the whole amount of energy will not be utilized for the synthesis of ATP. Only a part of it will be utilized. And by utilizing a part of energy which is released in a catabolic reaction, ATP will be synthesized. And not only ATP, the energy can be stored in the form of reduced coenzymes also. That is in the form of NADH, that is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide hydride, or NADPH, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So, in either of the form, the released energy will be stored either in the form of ATP or in the form of reduced coenzymes. That is NADH and NADPH, or in some cases it may be FADH2 also, that is flavin adenine dinucleotide. So in either of the form, the released energy will be stored. And in case of catabolic reactions, whatever the larger complex that are produced during the digestion process will be converting into some simple and smaller components, and along with the monomers of the larger nutrient molecules, some poor end products, or else we can call them as waste products also, they will be produced, such as carbon dioxide will be produced, ammonia will be produced, or else in some case some sulfate content will be produced, or some waste phosphate content will be produced, or excess of water will be produced. All these things will be considered as poor end products or some waste products. And whatever the poor or waste products that will be produced during the catabolic process, all these things will be eliminated in the process of excretion. So this is the whole and soul thing regarding catabolism. So and if you want to conclude regarding the catabolism, catabolism is a degradative pathway of metabolism wherein the larger or complex nutrient molecule will get break down to give simple or smaller components, and during the catabolic reactions the large amount of energy will be released and a part of energy will be utilized to produce the energy rich compounds such as ATP or the reduced coenzymes NADH and NADPH. We know that 1 unit of NADH will constitute 3 moles of ATP. So once again, this is the combination of 3 ATP molecules, and if you go with the FADH2, it is the composition of 2 ATP molecules. So in this way, the energy released will be stored in the form of ATP or in the form of reduced coenzymes, and that's about catabolism. And now we shall see about the anabolic pathway. Next, we shall see about the second type of metabolism, that is anabolism or anabolic reactions. We said in case of catabolism, the larger nutrient molecule will get break down to give the simpler monomers of it. And in case of anabolism, so whatever the smaller or simple components that are converted, that are produced by the breakdown of the larger nutrient molecule will be converted into the needy larger or complex molecules. So once the simpler or smaller units produced by the breakdown of larger nutrient molecules that are obtained from the foodstuff will be utilized in order to produce whatever the required carbohydrate molecule or the protein molecules or lipid molecule that are in requirement for the body. So here the anabolism is exactly the opposite of the catabolism. That is, in case of catabolism, larger nutrient molecule will be break down to give the smaller or simple components. In case of anabolism, the smaller molecules or smaller monomers of the smaller monomers will combine so as to produce the larger nutrient molecule. That means anabolism is the synthetic pathway. It is the synthetic pathway of metabolism. Means it is exactly the opposite of the catabolism. So means in case of anabolism, the small or simple constituents will be converts into large or complex nutrient molecules. So we said in case of catabolism or in case of catabolic reactions, more amount of energy will be released. But here conversion of small or simple constituents or simple monomers into larger or complex nutrient molecule is not a thermodynamically favored reactions. Means they cannot take place on their own. They need some amount of energy. Means here the more amount of energy is required. That means ATP will be consumed so as to convert the smaller or simple molecules into larger complexes. That means in order to carry out these reactions, energy will be utilized. So that we can call this as endergonic reactions. So the anabolic reactions are endergonic reactions. Means energy will be utilized. So we can give some simple examples for this anabolic reactions. Say for example, from the protein components of the foodstuff, amino acids will be produced, and in the body the amino acids will be arranged in a specific sequence, and that will result in the production of a protein such as keratin. So keratin is very much required for the maintenance of nails, hairs, and so on. And from the monomer, that is glucose, which is produced during the catabolic pathway, will be utilized so as to produce glycogen in a human body, or else starch in case of plant bodies. So keratin is a complex nutrient molecule, that is protein from which is produced from the amino acid. Glycogen and starch are the polysaccharides which is produced from the glucose, which is a simple monomer. And these things will be possible only with the utilization of energy. And as I said, the energy which is required to carry out the changes of conversion of smaller or simple monomers into complex nutrient molecule will be obtained by the hydrolysis of whatever the energy rich compound, that is ATP, or even you can go with NADH or NADPH or FADH2, that is reduced coenzymes. And that's a bit about the anabolic pathway. And if you consider the whole and soul stages of or whole and soul reactions of both catabolism and anabolism, the metabolic reactions, those metabolic reactions, if you observe, the reactions may be linear, or even the reactions may be branched ones, or in some cases the metabolic reactions are cyclic. That means from which precursor material or from which starting material the reaction will be starting, after so many stages, again the stage will comes to the original spot, I mean to the beginning stop. That kind of reactions are cyclic reactions. So these are then three ways through which the metabolic reactions will proceed, either linearly or with branches, or the reaction may be cyclic. And if you want to sum up in case of types of metabolism, in case of catabolism, that is in case of catabolism, several starting materials will be used to convert into a single product. But if you come to the case of anabolism, unlike in case of catabolism, in anabolism, a single precursor will be converted into several products. So these two are exactly opposite to each other. That means here in case of catabolism, several precursors means the starting materials. Several precursors will be converted or will be interacting to give a single product. But here in case of anabolism, a single precursor will converts or will produce several products. So this is exactly the opposite to each other. That is catabolism and anabolism. So you can notice in catabolism, several precursors will convert to give a single product. But in case of anabolism, a single precursor will be utilized so as to produce several useful products. So this is a complete distincting pathways of catabolism and anabolism, which collectively constitutes metabolism. And that's about the stuff regarding the catabolism and anabolism. And now we shall see the stages of the both catabolism and anabolic pathway. So now we shall look over into the stages of first one, that is catabolism. Before going to that, till now we have given the basic stuff regarding metabolism and we said the types of metabolism. One question that comes to our mind: why should we learn? Why should we understand the metabolic pathway that actually happen in a living system, especially for humans? So if you know that if you have the thorough understanding of a human metabolism, it is very much useful. Strictly speaking, the understanding of human metabolism is very much essential, which will give a much help in diagnosing the pathological conditions. So by diagnosing the pathological conditions, by knowing the exact metabolic pathway that is actually happening in a human body, it is easier to prescribe the drugs for a particular human if he is suffering with a disease. So for example, if a person is suffering with diabetes, we can't give the same kind of drug, same kind of dosage for a particular disease that what we used to give for a normal person. It is highly impossible. If you give the same kind of drugs, that may create some adverse effects in that body. That's not supposed to happen. And if a person is suffering with a liver problem, we can't give the drugs for a particular disease that what we are going to give for a normal person. It is highly impossible. And carrying out the diagnosis also will be different for a person having a different metabolic pathway compared to the normal person. It is not at all good. So in that way, if you know the exact metabolic pathway of a particular human body, then it is easier to diagnose it and easier to prescribe the drugs for a person, and it is easier to suggest a proper diet for a person. So the understanding of metabolism is very, very important. And if you compare the metabolism that actually occurs in case of plant systems and in human system, we can't say that 100% equivalence. There will be a slight difference in the metabolism of very slight difference between the metabolism that occurs in plants and animals, especially in human body. And now we shall directly go to the stages of catabolism. Catabolism actually occurs in 3 stages. There are 3 major stages of catabolism. So now we shall see the stage 1. In stage 1, it occurs hydrolysis of large nutrient molecules into their simple monomers. That is, if you consider polysaccharides, the polysaccharides will undergo hydrolysis in the digestive system so as to produce the monosaccharides. And the larger nutrient molecule, that is a protein, will be hydrolyzed so as to give amino acids. So like this, the larger nutrient molecules will be hydrolyzed so as to give their simple monomers. Monosaccharides are the monomers of polysaccharides. Amino acids are the monomers of proteins. And if you go with the lipids, they are going to produce the fatty acids and glycerols. And this thing actually occurs during the digestion of the food material, the absorption of food. So during that stage, these things will happen. That is the first stage of catabolism. Now the second stage is, in stage 2, whatever the simple monomer units that are produced in stage 1, that is which are produced or which are obtained from the complex nutrient molecule, will undergo further degradation so as to produce acetyl-CoA, that is acetyl coenzyme A. And in stage 2, along with acetyl coenzyme A, few other simple molecules will also be produced. And in this conversion, in this degradation of simple monomer units into acetyl coenzyme, there occurs utilization of very small amount of ATP. So you can get a doubt that we said in a previous minute, that is catabolic reactions are exergonic reaction. That means energy will be released during the reaction. But here I am telling a small amount of ATP will be utilized in this step of degradation of simple monomer units into acetyl coenzyme. But if you took the overall energy released during the catabolic pathway, especially in stage 3 of catabolism, the total amount of ATPs or total amount of energy released during this process is very much large compared to the small amount of ATP which is going to utilize in stage 2. So now we shall go with stage 3. In stage 3, whatever the acetyl coenzyme A which is produced in stage 2 will undergo oxidation, and by oxidation acetyl coenzyme will be converted into carbon dioxide, and along with that there occurs production of ATP. And how this production of ATP will happen? This is mainly due to transfer of electron to molecular oxygen through oxidative phosphorylation. So here we observe the oxidative phosphorylation that occurs, that is involvement of transfer of electrons from NADH to molecular oxygen. So during this process, more amount of energy will be utilized and part of it will be converted into ATP. And this thing can be simply called as citric acid cycle. So the stage 3 of catabolism is actually citric acid cycle. Do remember this, it will be helpful for your competitive examination. So which stage of catabolism is actually citric acid cycle? It is actually the stage 3. So what happens in citric acid cycle? In citric acid cycle, acetyl coenzyme A will undergo oxidative phosphorylation so as to produce carbon dioxide as final product, and large amount of ATP will be produced. So this is the 3 stages of catabolic pathway. So now we shall see about stages of anabolism. So like in case of catabolism, in anabolism also the reactions will take place in 3 stages. So now we shall see what are the 3 stages of anabolism and what are the things that happens in each stage of anabolic pathway. In stage 1, whatever the simpler or monomer units that are produced from the catabolic pathway will be converted into a common precursor material, that is acetyl coenzyme A. This is the first stage of anabolism. And whatever the acetyl coenzyme A which is produced in stage 1 of anabolism, that what I said will be used as a common precursor, and that will be used in synthesis of the amino acids, sugars and fatty acids. And from this amino acids, sugars and fatty acids that are obtained from acetyl-CoA will get reassembled in a specific and required pathway so as to produce the larger complex molecules such as proteins, lipids and polysaccharides. So these are the three stages that will be observed in case of anabolism. So through catabolism, the complex nutrient molecules will be break down or will be converted to form of simple nutrient molecules and finally to acetyl coenzyme A, and that acetyl coenzyme A will undergo oxidative phosphorylation to produce carbon dioxide and energy. If you come to the case of anabolism, the smaller simple units will be converted into acetyl coenzyme A, and acetyl coenzyme A will convert into simple units once again, and that simple units will reassemble by the utilization of energy so as to produce the needy and required proteins, lipids and polysaccharides. So it's a cyclic pathway through which wherever energy is required, catabolic pathway will occur, and wherever the nutrient molecules are required, anabolic pathway will happen so that it will maintain the human living system in a normal pathway, and that creates a good health for a human body. And that is the basic stuff which is required for the metabolism. And in our next video, we shall discuss about the different metabolic pathways, that is carbohydrate metabolism, that what we call as aerobic and anaerobic. In both the stages we shall discuss. And if the video is useful for you, please like it, share it, and if you not yet subscribed to my channel, do subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will get the notification for any new update in my channel. Thank you very much.